And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. No, unfortunately, that title is not clickbait. And for some of you out there, I think you already maybe could guess a little bit about what this video is about. But I've been wrong about a couple things in the very, very recent timeline. Within, let's call it the last month. The first thing I guess I was kind of wrong at was I thought that Japanese 151 booster boxes would be a good buy at sub $1,000. Now, that puts those booster boxes right at around $83. And we saw prices go a lot lower than that for a short amount of time. And then we're already seeing prices tick back up. And a lot of people were messaging me. For everybody out there, even if I didn't get back to you about your messages, I appreciate you sending me all the good links to some really good prices. And I don't know, drag my feet. Didn't buy anything, and I'm going to continue to drag my feet. So we're in a weird timeline. We did see that early release, and if you've been watching this channel, one thing I said over and over and over again is cases. Pick up cases. Forget individual booster boxes. But to be honest with you, at this point, I think I'm going to wait for these later waves of booster boxes to be released. And if I could pick up cases for cheap, I will. But now I'm really starting to look at individual booster boxes because I think for the upcoming waves that booster boxes are really going to be cheap. And I was wrong. I thought $1,000 was going to be a good buy for 12 boxes, but ended up not really being a good buy. And I know some people out there were able to pick up cases for like $700. So if you picked up at 1,000, maybe it wasn't a good buy when you could have picked up at 700. Now, the market has already like recovered real quick, and I think I saw like a booster case out of Japan yesterday on eBay sell for like $1,500. But I think that's just like the market doing what the market does. So I was wrong on that. I thought 1,000 would be a good price, but they ended up being a lot lower. Like I said, we got another month where we're going to really start to see supply hit the market. And I'm going to be extremely curious where these prices fall to. And it's weird too. I already see people like not really understanding that we're going to see originally like the reprint everybody was saying May, and then we had those early cases being fire sold at the call it like April 21st timeline, but those prices are still going to drop. So how many 151 Japanese boxes or cases have I picked up since the reprint? A zero, a big whopping zero. So I don't know. I think this is going to be one of those times where I drag my feet for so long that I will miss the bottom. But the weird thing is out of all the products that I've ever been super comfortable about missing the bottom, it's going to be Japanese 151 booster boxes. I'm just waiting. I want to see how they play out. And I have a feeling that when, the restock does really hit the market and we see a lot of these individual boxes crash, I don't think it's going to stay down for long. I think we're going to see a decent recovery. Now, this is the caveat. What is a decent recovery? Do we think it's going to recover up to $200 overnight? I don't really think that. I think it's hopefully going to become what I consider a more organic price increase. Organic means like gradual percentage increases in that boxes, 110, 120, 130, 140, like a slow gradual over the next year timeline. That's what I hope to see. What I'm hoping I don't see, even though at that point, fingers crossed, I'm actually pick up some at this point, but I'm hoping we don't see, the real reprint hit the market and then prices crash and then they recover overnight to $200. I don't think that is probably great for the overall market. I think you need like a strong low uptrend. And I think that if that happens, then we'll see strong prices for 151 into the future. That's the first thing I was wrong about. Second thing I was wrong about, gee golly gee whiz, was I wrong about Pokemon Center running out of stock of both Lost Origin booster boxes and both Brilliant Stars. If the time recording this video, feel free to just go on to PokemonCenter.com and see that both of those booster boxes are still readily available on PokemonCenter.com. And I know there's a lot of people been actively buying up the supply of PokemonCenter.com in the last month, and it's still in stock. I don't know how much is in stock. I don't know. It's got to be a lot. It's got to be running low, but I also thought it was running low a month ago and 2 months ago and 6 months ago. So I've been continued to be proven wrong about how much Brilliant Stars is actually available on PokemonCenter.com. I thought it was a way lower amount than it actually probably in reality was. But if you've been watching this channel long enough, you did know that I've always, when I like to put on my, call it, tinfoil fedora, I've always liked to believe in that hypothetical tinfoil hat that there was an actual reprint of Brilliant Stars booster boxes, but they were 100% funneled into PokemonCenter.com. Now, that was a tinfoil hat theory. It's still a tinfoil hat theory, but woo, it's really feeling like that is true. And then another thing is Lost Origin. You know, you're still seeing a lot of Lost Origin on PokemonCenter.com. A lot of people have been continually trying to eat up this supply. How much was there? I'm not sure. But it had to have been more than everybody was expecting. Are we running into that timeline where it's going to run out of stock? Maybe. I've been saying that for months. But when it does, it's going to run. But, man, I was wrong. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I thought that the window of time was closing a lot faster. But, you know, that's the thing about this hobby is... and the very first video when I talked about, like, I think now's the time to... I think it was like a more clickbaity title. It's like, the time is coming to an end, or something along those lines. But in that video, I put a timeline of 2 weeks. 2 weeks have come and passed a long time ago. And then I said, you know, it could be 2 months. And in that video, I said, you know, 2 months now, when you're living in the moment, might feel like an eternity. But when you pull yourself back from this very, very small, short, truncated window of time that we are currently living in, when you pull yourself out and you look at the hobby as a whole, a 2-month timeline can be nothing. Now, this is a problem too, is all my buys have been those two products recently. You know, I've done little onesie twosies of like a card here, a card there. Big shout out to Nick Old School Pokemon, Catch 'em All Collectibles, Jake Pokenomics. I visited Nick up in the Boston area, visited with Jake too. I went to the best flippin' card show in Woburn, Mass. Big shout out. I think I saw Tom B in the chat earlier. Got to meet Tom in person, got to meet some other people. It was a lot of fun. Spent like, I don't know, like $100 or $200 there, so very minuscule purchases. I picked up some Japanese promos recently, like cheap ones. I'm talking really, really cheap Japanese promos, like $4 cards on eBay. Other than that, I picked up a couple items on the Z&G Emporium auction block. I picked up Pokemon Pal City Summer Battle Road 2007 recently. $100 card, like... My big buys have just went to sealed product, and then I had to do what I've already mentioned on my video in the past, is I had to take my foot off the gas and say, oh, just no more. Can't do it anymore. So, I was wrong. Feels good to be wrong once in a while. Now, this is a caveat. I haven't sold any of that product. I'm not planning on selling it in the near term, but it's amazing how much product actually existed. And then we saw that Astro Radiance went out of stock real quick, and then it was instantly restocked. I say I'd stop doing buys, but then as I'm now surrounded by a bunch of Pokemon Van Gogh stuff off Pokemon Center, so that was another $1,000 bill. But I mentioned that on my last live too. So, but let's talk about going to Nick Old School Pokemons if you guys want to hear what that was like. It was a lot of fun. So Jake was vending at. It's called the Best Flippin' Card Show, which is a pretty cool name. Jake was vending, so as soon as you walked in, Jake was the second table. Talked to Jake a lot. Met up with Nick. Dan Catch 'em All Collectibles came with his wife about an hour after the fact. I met up with Tom B while he was there, and then just walked around. You know, card shows can be trouble when you're just there to buy. Looking at every card, I'm like, I just want everything, always want everything. It was a lot of sports, but like the very first when you walked in the door, it was really mainly Pokemon. I don't have the card on me, but I bought like a really cool miscut card. I'll show you guys on another live. It's still in my car. But then, you know, I walked through the whole thing, and then I went to the kind of in the back of the room, like towards the wall. Like it was a pretty big convention. Well, big convention centers, you know, being subjective, but for, you know, a local card show, I'd consider it like a decent size hall. And then on the far back wall was just this random guy, and he had a table full of dead TCGs. Not MetaZoo dead TCGs. I'm talking like actual dead TCGs. And I walked up, I looked at him eye to eye, and I was like, okay, the right guy just walked into the room for you. And I was like, I'll take this one, 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 I'll take this one. I ended up walking away with 7. Pretty cool. So late at night, I'll get into it more, but we ended up opening one of them. But I can show you some of them. I have them like right at the front. So this is 4 of the 6. There's like some other ones, but it was just like this. I'll see if I can pull up my camera so I can actually see. It's stuff like this. This was the one we actually opened. So me, Jake, and Dan opened this at Nick Old School Pokemon's table at like, it's probably like 3 or 4 a.m. We just ripped through this box. It was a lot of fun. Like, I liked it for the artwork, just having like a dinosaur, and then on the side you had King Kong, the Loch Ness Monster, and then, you know, some other dinosaurs. This is a T-Rex getting attacked by velociraptors, and this booster box predated Jurassic Park, which I thought was pretty cool. And then, so that was sealed, and then, like, just random stuff. I like the artwork, you know? So I picked up some dead TCGs. Just, you know, random stuff. And, you know, when I haven't seen it before in the past, I'm just going to pick it up. And $10 boxes. Yes. See, now this is the thing a lot of people don't know about dead TCGs. They hear dead TCGs and they think, like, cheap boxes. There are really, really cheap dead TCG boxes. But the big caveat to anytime anybody ever mentions dead TCGs is you always have to pay shipping if you're buying on eBay. So no matter what, you're always looking at $10 shipping. Doesn't matter. So even if you get really lucky and you pick up like a $10 dead TCG, you're always going to be into that for at minimum $20. And otherwise, people are just really, really losing money. So it was a lot of fun. Picked up a few more. But that was fun. And then going to Nick Old School Pokemon's house. Got to see his whole setup. I got to see the No Damage Ninetales collection. And then we all went live. And, you know, it was a lot of fun. Me and Dan were in the background doing a lot of DGen stuff. Giving away a lot of packs to all Nick's streamers. I want to say we definitely gave away hundreds upon hundreds of dollars worth of packs. And then later in the night, Jake got there. And Jake and Dan were I was like kind of watching Nick, you know, doing what he was doing on his screen, and then Jake and Dan were behind me just ripping packs. I mean, this is what happens when you get a bunch of D-gens in a room surrounded by a bunch of packs, and they were just ripping, and I just kept, every time I probably turned around like a dozen times, and I was like, I want nothing to do with what's going on back there, but it was fun, you know, it's just good to see your friends, and talk about, like, just great dudes in the hobby. Dan's great dude, Nick's great dude, Jake's great dude. And just being together with all those guys is fun. And then real late into Nick's stream, we were originally going to, like, order Chinese. And then I think the Chinese place closed at, like, midnight. So I ended up getting Domino's. And then there's, like, the unfurnished side of Nick's basement. It's, like, Nick's office area where he does all his pack openings. And the other side, we, like, set up a folding table. And Dan just ordered out, got a bunch of Domino's. But it was just fun, man. Like, you need that. You need to be able to unwind once in a while, but I didn't know, like, the inventory Nick has, too. Nick's inventory is next level. I mean, same thing with Jake. Saw Jake's inventory. First time I ever seen Jake's, like, collection in person. Like, I'm not going to blow up anybody's spot, but it's rooms full. Just, I can't even imagine. Like, thousands upon thousands of graded cards. You know, I look over here to my shelf and, like, I have a couple long boxes that I created myself. Compared to what these guys have, it's just wild. And then Nick Old School Pokemon's house. So I slept in the guest bedroom when I was there. Big shout out to Nick. But as soon as you walk up, Nick's just got a big Pokemon snap machine. I'm like, Nick, you got a snap machine? He's like, oh yeah, you didn't know that? I was like, no, I didn't know you had a snap machine. And it's just like right there, just tucked away in the guest room. So Nick has a bunch of cool stuff. It's just, if you're into Pokemon and you like to just look at cool things in this hobby, people's collections and seeing, what people are famous for. Like, one of the things Nick is famous for is no damage Ninetales. And when you look at the pop report and then you look at how many Nick has, so me and Dan, I think we pulled up the pop report for no damage Ninetales. I don't want to misquote it, but I believe it was like, I want to say like 56 PSA graded maybe 56. But then you look at what Nick had, it was like 30 of them. It's like 50% of the entire population of no damage Ninetales of PSA. And then he had twice that amount in CGC because there was a ton of those cards graded by CGC. It's fun. And, just when I do these videos, when I do this channel, a lot of it is just me, like, for my mental just clarity, is just discussing Pokemon, getting a lot of things off my chest. But, it's the same thing with, it's just different when you're in person and you get to ramble to Nick, or I get to ramble to Dan, or I get to ramble to Jake. And the conversations that are had privately are just so much different than the conversations sometimes you have publicly. Mainly they're different, like, maybe you'll share numbers a little more, stuff like that, but you're still able to just talk to like-minded people that all have that same sort of passion. And when you're talking to people with the same sort of passion, it is super, in a way, like, relieving. And it makes you understand too, on a higher level, like, how this hobby is not going away. I think a lot of times people, I talk about it all the time, like, I think it's important that you live in the day-to-day of this hobby. But when I say live in the day-to-day, I don't want you to lose sight of how absolutely truly massive this hobby is, and the people that are truly, like, entrenched in this hobby, how deeply rooted they are in this hobby. It seems as if it's almost an impossibility for them to ever completely leave the hobby. Like, even if they were to sell so much stuff and get out, like, I mentioned it on my previous slide. It's like that scene from The Godfather. No matter how hard you try to get out, they just pull you back in. And then, talking to these guys, you just understand. There's just no way that people like this, who are just so deeply rooted in this hobby, can ever leave. But then, from what I see on, I won't even call it a daily, but let's call it on a yearly basis. It's so anecdotal from what I'm seeing versus everybody in this hobby. But if what I'm seeing just through what is probably a relatively smaller group of people, whether it's the people I get to meet in person, when you go to Rusty's house, it's next level. It's so much, you're at Nick's house and you see Jake's collection, but then you see Rusty's collection, and it's just like, you understand. I almost make the joke that everyone needs to go to see some people's collections too, because it humbles you very quickly in this hobby. And I think it's almost as vital as anything in this hobby, is once in a while you just need to be humbled. And when you see Rusty's collection, you become humbled very quickly, and what you have versus, what some people on the highest end of the hobby have. And, just talking about, like, the uncut sheet collection, it's when you sit there and you're looking dead in your face, just like $1,000,000+ worth of uncut sheets, it really humbles you in a way, because you understand, like, how much bigger this hobby is. And no matter how much you're doing at whatever scale you're doing it at, it humbles you, but in a good way, because you know that there is a next level, and a level after that, and a level after that, and a level after that. And I talked about it when I came back from Rusty's. Like, I realized, like, the level I'm at, I don't need to be at these guys' levels, but there's all these levels in between, which if I can just get a quarter of the way there, or a half of the way there, if something magical happens and I could get 75% of the way there, like, it changes your life in such a positive way. It just reinforces everything that is positive and good and reassuring and about this hobby. It's simple. And how much of that is the business aspect that these guys are running, but it's the community aspect too. And there is one thing above all others, and when you look at every single person that is what I call hyper successful in this hobby. And I do not think I want to make it very clear. I do not include myself in that conversation. But the people that I know who are actually, in reality, in fact, the true hyper successful people in this hobby, they all have one common theme in, like, across the board in common. And that none of them got there alone. All of them got there by doing two things. One, being super honest, and then two, running super respectful businesses. But I guess the third thing, which is, I know I said two things, but probably the third thing, which is the most important thing, is the relationships that they built to get to that level. And if you understand that, if you understand the, like, relationships, building relationships in this hobby, I think that's just the magical formula. And I know a lot of people out there are doing this hobby on their own, and if it's working for you, like, I'm not going to shit on it, but if you are doing this alone, I can't, like, recommend it anymore, is just to reach out to some people in this hobby. Start to build those relationships. Start to grow those relationships, because if you ever do want to get to the absolute highest end of this hobby, you can't do it alone. You got to build those relationships. And that's, like, probably the one thing above all others that are, in common besides those other two. Honesty, integrity, but relationships. Relationships at the highest end of this hobby are so important, because, when you get to a certain level in this hobby, one, doors do start to open themselves up, and they start to open themselves up through relationships. But, one of the hardest things to do is, before you make some mistakes in this hobby, being able to learn from others' mistakes. And if you're able to learn from their mistakes before you make that cardinal sin and do that mistake yourself, if you can learn from them, or you can learn from these relationships, and, in a way, have these people in a small way be like mentors to you, and watch the way that they interact with the hobby and the way that they do stuff, and you won't make the same mistakes. And you'll just, I don't know. I know I'm getting super ranty, but hey, I warned you. One, I already told you why I was wrong, but I also warned you. I said, warning, Pokemon Rant. If you click on this video, be very, very understanding of one thing above all others. There will be a rant in this video, and this is the point where it's just that ranty video, just talking about, like, the relationships you got to build in this hobby. But not just the relationships, you just, like I said, just understanding that you can't do this alone, and that's it, man. But when you see what these guys are doing, and you understand the way they're doing it, and the methods they have, and the systems they have, all these things are so, so valuable. And, in a way, a lot of their systems, I think they have to be, in a small way, like, it's, from the outside looking in, some of their systems seem a little bit chaotic, and you're just like, how are you able to manage this? How are you able to make this work? But even though it might seem chaotic to you from the outside looking in, like I said, if you can just pull out a little bit from each person and kind of make it your own, and take a bunch of people's chaoses, and then, I guess, in a way, make it your own chaos, but make it a chaos that you understand and a system that works for you, sky's the limit, man. This hobby, it has a super, super bright future to it. And I know people, we talk about, like, the day-to-day, but trust me, the macro of this hobby, the large scale of this hobby, it's going to go on for a long time, and the future is super bright. And don't ever fool yourself, and don't make the mistake of not understanding the simple fact that you are deep down this rabbit hole. Shout out to Basic Trainer. You are in the niches of the niches. And, I love the fact that there are a lot of people out. The large majority of the people in this hobby is that I can walk into a room, and you can name the people doing some of the biggest things in this hobby at the biggest, highest level, and you can talk to most people in this hobby and mention a few names, and people might look at you dumbfounded or wide-eyed. They would not know who you're talking about. They would not know those people. So they're just happy living their lives in this hobby. But when you get deep down the rabbit hole, you understand like how things are, truly ran, and it's great, man. I think it's just super beneficial. Next thing, a little bit of business for you. So, I did mention that Nat Turner was coming on this channel May 6th at 4 p.m. It's still May 6th, but that time has been booked up, or bumped up, I should say, till 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yes, I know. Listen, 4 to 1:30, I'm still extremely happy. Nat Turner's schedule is super, super busy. I'm still have my fingers crossed that May 6th doesn't get canceled. It just got just got bumped up a few hours. So I think probably 1:30, to be honest with you, might work better for some people. I definitely people in the UK too. I think that's going to work really well for people in the UK, and not just the UK. I should just say Europe and just around the world. And there's going to be two questions I'm going to ask Nat like during that live. One of them's definitely going to be about eBay Live because, or excuse me, not eBay Live, eBay Vault. And that's going to be the question that a lot of people right now, that the eBay Vault as it stands today will not ship internationally. And that's really been like a detriment for a lot of people. In order to buy through the eBay Vault, you would have to do like proxy, addresses in America and stuff. And that could get really tricky. Now that PSA is taken over, we get to ask that question, or at least I get to ask that question to Nat and say, Nat, got a question. So originally, eBay wouldn't ship out of their vault internationally, but now because it's a PSA vault and your shipping system is much different, will the PSA vault now be able to ship internationally? And if his answer is yes to that, that is a huge game changer, because that was definitely the detriment of the eBay vault, is because you were being super, super limited for that international, buyer clientele. But now, if you can circumvent that, and now it's not just North America, it's the world, the buyer pool just opens up exponentially, and that is huge. So that's going to be the first like international question I'm going to ask him. And the second one is, a lot of people were mentioning, because one of the things PSA is doing is they're opening up a lot of different grading hubs. At the time of our recent live, he was talking about Jersey, but during that live, Japan had just opened up and started receiving cards and grading cards. For a while, Japan was just like an intermediate shipping hub, so you would ship to the hub in Japan, but they weren't doing the grade, and they would still ship them to California. And then during Nat's live, he's like, no, Japan's actually grading their own cards. And then the big question a lot of people had is, are we going to see a grading hub now in Europe? And then just from that live, I heard a lot of people, mention, whatever you do, don't put that grading hub in the UK, because a lot of the stuff that's going on with the Brexit stuff. So, a lot of these European countries, they don't really like charge taxes to ship in between countries. But if you're shipping out of the UK to all these countries, you're always going to have to pay taxes. So I am curious to ask them that question, if that is something that they've considered, if they are planning to get into Europe, and if they've really like made that conscious decision. Do they want to do a UK, or do they want to move out of UK to make it more open for the rest of Europe? So it's going to be a good question. All right, guys. Shout out to Mason Cardinal Gaming. Mason, I just took a big deep breath. That was my very first deep breath of this live. So there you go. So big shout out. We got number one mod in the game, Drew. I saw you hop into Nick's eBay Live. That was a lot of fun. Zard Lurkin 92 said, here we go. Lay it on us. Extra thick and spicy PK, yeah. Let's see. Nicholas said, watching NFL draft and PK rant. I'm ready for this, yes. Let's see. McNick said, Terminator line. Here we go. Nab90 said, PK wrong. I don't believe it, because PK's a masterpiece. Nab90, I got to ask you a question. So, the Perrin, the most recent card coming out in, what is it? The newest Pokemon set. Twilight Masquerade. There's the Perrin, like the alt-art chase where she's holding the camera, taking the photo. But if you look in the camera lens, it's the Growlithe. That's also like the full art character card. So or the full art card, and I'm curious if you've known that. And if you look at the Growlithe card, you could actually see her legs in that card. So it's just kind of cool when cards tell a story. One, you have the Growlithe in the reflection in the lens of the camera, and then you see her legs in the actual Growlithe card, actually looking down at the Growlithe taking the photo. So I would think that's very cool. I love when Pokemon kind of just sprinkles in that stuff, you know? But, Namp, I am curious if you've actually seen that or not. Christopher said, PK rant time, yes. Let's see. Pokey Chef, good to see you. He said, what up, PK? Hope you and the rest of the Foot Clan have recovered from eBay Live. Oh, we're good. Zachary said, I still don't think it was a reprint yet. Everything I've heard was distribution, offloaded, hoard in stock before the allocation showed up. Still set for mid-May. Yeah, I mean, that's what I've heard too. This is the thing. I told you. I told you early in this live. I have bought a whopping 0 booster boxes. 0 cases. If I honestly did believe that what we just saw was the last restocks we ever would have seen, I'd be scooping up boxes right now for, whatever, 115, 110. And no. There's a reason why I've bought none. It's because I do think that we are going to see prices dip really low in May. Now, I don't really know what the case situation is going to look like in May. It might be a lot of picking up onesie, twosies of booster boxes. But, in reality, I told you originally I wanted to pick up 10 cases, which was 120 boxes. After, Pokemon Center and Brilliant Stars and Lost Origin, now I'm really looking at about 5 cases. So 5 cases is 60 booster boxes. Is it a lot of work to pick up onesie, twosies of 60 booster boxes? Yes and no. It's not enough. It's not so much work that I'm not willing to do it. At least put it in that way. So I'm just going to try to pick up the cheapest boxes I can possible. If I don't know what prices are going to hit. With distribution potentially offloading their supply, we saw booster boxes dip down to between $70, $75. A couple people I know picked them up lower, but I would say like the lowest I really saw was 70, 75. So if we saw that low before the potential major dump, $60 booster boxes, very possible. $50 booster boxes, possible. Not very possible, but possible. Sub 50, I don't know. I am very hesitant with saying sub 50, but it's still too early to tell. We will find out, and I could be very wrong, and maybe we don't see $60 booster boxes, but I'm leaning heavier towards yes to 60 than further away. And I could be wrong, And if I am wrong, it is what it is. So Z37 said in a couple years, $1,000 will be a banger price. Yeah, I mean, in a couple years, I mean, a lot of things are going to be, super undervalued in relative to a couple years from now. So Nicholas says, I think it's time to wait still as well. It seems they made it hot candy again for no reason, yeah. Tom B said, PK, thanks for the invite to lunch last weekend, man. I was flattered for the invite, but didn't want to intrude. I'll catch you guys next. Oh, you weren't intruding, man. We honestly, for the lunch, we were probably like the last people to leave the card show, but we just went to like a local restaurant. I was craving a burger so bad. Just the drive up from, to Boston was like a 2-hour drive. And I was just so hungry in the entire drive. So then I was really, you could ask Catch 'em All Collectibles. I was like, I'm ready for lunch. I'm ready for lunch. And then we didn't leave until we didn't leave that card show till like 2:33. We were literally like the last people out the door. The entire parking lot was empty except for us. So let's see. So Nicholas and Lost Origin and Brilliant Stars got apparently printed into oblivion. That's what it seems like. At least booster boxes appear that way. Evan says, I keep buying cases of either Lost Origin and Brilliant, and he will until they're sold out. Yeah. Jimbo Sai said, a Japanese 151 has already recently sold out at $200. That's 5 times retail. Seems a pretty safe bet. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I wouldn't be talking about Japanese 151 if I didn't think in the future it was going to do really well. I promise you. When I talked about parking $1,000 per case originally before I actually saw how much product was going to hit the market, I promise you, I'm not parking $1,000 per case because I think in 2 years or 3 years from now, or on the high end 5 years from now, that these booster boxes are not going to be performing well. I think, in fact, I think that they will be performing extremely well. Otherwise, I wouldn't be parking my money in there. But again, I haven't technically parked my money in there, so there's always that caveat. This is an interesting one, and one I have not seen yet. First, Tom B said, before I answer, Tom said, I had a coworker of mine who was in his mid-50s, wanted to start investing in Pokemon. He bought a case of Lost Origin and Brilliant Stars 2 days ago from Pokemon. Wow. How do you talk your coworker who's in their 50s into picking up Pokemon? See, I'm going to be honest with you, Tom. It's comments like that do believe that if we are in a bubble, we could be getting to the peak. And that, for the indicator and when we're getting to the peak is when your parents start reaching out to you and going, hey, you know what? Should I start investing in Pokemon? And when parents are like, okay, I'm going to start picking up some of this, it does make me believe that if we were in a bubble, that would be as strong of an indicator as any of them. And to be honest with you, Tom, I know that's not your parent, but you're not the first person that told me that somebody much older has started to invest in Pokemon. So I am a little worried about comments like that. This is the interesting comment that I want to read, though. Jay said, my last Brilliant Stars case wasn't sealed. Are they still doing that? Or sending out sealed cases? So my most recent one I got in the mail was a sealed. In fact, every single 6 booster box lot I've bought from PokemonCenter.com has been a sealed case. Now, this is a caveat, and I don't know if this is your actual situation. Whenever I was picking up 6 boxes, I was never adding anything else to the cart. So if it was just a sealed case, that's all I was buying. I wasn't adding any other auxiliary products, whether it's booster boxes or packs or 3-pack blisters or plushies or clothing, nothing else. I was only buying the 6 booster boxes at a time and nothing else. I don't know if that's potentially what happened to you, but you're actually the first person besides maybe Professor Oak, I think, said PokemonCenter.com might have sent him 6 booster boxes loose. But I think that is rarer than, I think usually they just send the case. Oh God. And then Evan Williams also wrote, my last Brilliant Stars case wasn't sealed. I was annoyed because it was a good case. Oh, interesting. So Nicholas said, Evan Williams, yeah, Pokemon Center now open up cases and put in the invoices in there. I've already put away all my cases. My cases keep coming with the FedEx label, so my boxes have the actual normal printed shipping label, and then it had the FedEx, I don't know what it's called. It's the FedEx clear cellophane wrap that you could put the invoice in it and then you stick it to the box. That's what I've been getting. So it's weird that you got something different. Yeah, that's very weird, man. I don't know what's going on. Evan said, I feel like they change the shipping process every other week. Yeah. People are saying Pokemon Center is literally the worst at shipping product. The problem is Pokemon Center is they're just shipping you the product because you're supposed to be, from PokemonCenter.com's viewpoint, you're supposed to be the end user. So I know a lot of people get mad when it's they want to keep it as a sealed product, but let's see. So John Paladine said, are you going to Collecticon in New Jersey this summer? Yes, I will be there. 100% I will be there. And shout out to Bearski Collects. If you guys aren't followed Bearski, go follow his video. He talked about something he's doing for Jersey Collecticon. So if you're not subscribed to him, check out his channel. #1 mod in the game, Drew, can link you to Bearski's channel. But his most recent, it's literally his most recent video. He made a pretty big announcement talking about the New Jersey Collecticon. I recommend you guys checking out that video, especially checking out that video if you do plan to go to Jersey Collecticon. So, uh, Pokemage87 said, PK, the eBay Live with you and Dan was a hell of a good time. Yeah, man, I'm glad you had fun. I know me and Dan had fun. I don't know if Nick had a lot of fun, but Nick, put it this way, Nick's a good sport. Uh, so Nicholas said, PK, are you by any chance going to the Stanford Northeast Sports Card Expo? I Let me know what date it is. Stanford Northeast Sports Card Expo. Northeast Card Expo. I'll have to look into that. I'll put it on my list. When is it? So May 4th and 5th. You know what? I might, let's see. May 4th and 5th. I don't know. It might be tough. I might not be able to make this. I'll let you know if I can, though. Let's see. Number one mod in the game said, the eBay Live was great. I didn't think old school Pokemon would have anything left after PK was done there. Thanks for the fun time. Yeah, Drew. It was a lot of fun. Pokemon Classics, great comment. He said, I love the hobby. Oh, wait. I read the beginning, then I read the end. But he said, I love the hobby, but personally I prefer to keep it smaller and more casual. The thought of full-time Pokemon is exhausting to him. Yeah, it could definitely be exhausting if you're doing it full-time. Let's see. So Pokebondo said, I learned a lot from Dan, Nick, Jake, and PK. Appreciate you, Pokebondo. Or Pokebondo said, or he's in debt. Like, not in debt, but in debt. I get it. I see what you did there. So John Powline said, I've been collecting Pokemon for 3 years now, and I'm way in all the way down the rabbit hole, and I'll never leave. I love this hobby, yes. People are getting mad the way I say the niches of the hobby. The hobby. Let's see. Yeah, so Drew, he just wrote in the chat, if you guys are just joining the live now, update PK Live with Nat Turner, 5-6 at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, not 4 o'clock, yeah. Let's see. Nicholas said, everyone down on the Scarlet. This is an interesting take, Nicholas, and I think I don't know if I'm going to agree with you, but he said everyone down on the Scarlet and Violet block is interesting. The artwork is so good compared to some other generations. It's just so interesting to see the negativity when it has great artwork. So this is the thing. I cannot name one channel that is negative on Scarlet and Violet. And if my opinion on Scarlet and Violet has definitely changed recently. Even if you were to say I was a little negative on Scarlet and Violet, right when Temple Forces was released, I talked about that set. I showed like the potential market manipulation that was going on, but then I talked about like how much hype and demand that was in it. And then recently I went through the Twilight Masquerade set on either my most recent live or my live right before that. And I talked about Twilight Masquerade and how awesome of a set I thought it was. And I thought that like it's a lot better than maybe a lot of people are thinking. Now I think where maybe people are down on Scarlet and Violet is I think that a lot of people just believe that they have a lot of time if they want to pick up positions in Scarlet and Violet, that they have a little bit of time to wait. And I think that a lot of just eyes are on the later Sword and Shield sets. Like I talked, Lost Origin, Brilliant Stars. I think that's where a lot of money is going right now. I don't really know if it's so much that people are talking down on Scarlet and Violet right now, especially when you talk about 151. Again, that's a specialty set, so maybe that's an outlier. But I think it's just people see better opportunities elsewhere, and I believe that people just feel they have time on Scarlet and Violet. And I think you do have time on Scarlet and Violet right now, but I do also believe that that window of time is closing very quickly. I think the days of $80 Scarlet and Violet booster boxes are going the way of the dodo really, really quick. But, when you're talking about the difference between an $80 box versus a $100 box, when you have these other great opportunities, I think that's all it is. But I think once those other opportunities, and, the big glaring opportunity being the Sword and Shield block, once that Sword and Shield product is no longer available at cheap prices and relative being MSRP prices, everybody's going to dump in the Scarlet and Violet. The problem is with Scarlet and Violet, and one of the things that I keep mentioning is something in Scarlet and Violet is going to eventually get reprinted. I doubt you could probably find me a lot of people that are going to make that argument that nothing's getting reprinted. I believe something will get reprinted. And I think that's the danger that a lot of people are looking at Scarlet and Violet is just what is the most likely for a reprint. I think a lot of people probably first thing they talk about is 151, especially looking that Japan just reprinted 151. I think a lot of people are going saying 151. I've heard the arguments for Crown Zenith. I'm past that boat. I don't think Crown Zenith is getting any reprints. Again, that's not really Scarlet Violet. That's the end of that's set 12.5 for Sword and Shield. But for Scarlet Violet, one of these main expansions are going to get reprinted. What that's going to be, it's tough to say. But talking to Dan Ketchmall Collectibles, Dan said he could pick up any Scarlet and Violet set currently at distribution. The only set that he currently cannot pick up at distribution is Paldea Evolved. So if that is literally the only set not available at distribution, I feel like that is probably more likely going to be the set that Pokemon reprints, only because literally I just mentioned every other set is currently available at distribution with the exception of Paldea Evolved. So like I said, I think that's just the argument that a lot of people are going through right now. Collector's Shop said, PK, do you also invest in PSA cards or only sealed? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Big time PSA guy, yeah. It's not just sealed. In fact, it's funny you say that, or only sealed. I would say for the most part, people would have, before recently, maybe you're newer to this channel, I feel like people would always say PK only likes graded cards and PK doesn't like sealed. So I do think it's interesting that you put that comment. But no, I'm very big into, grading cards, graded collection. So, let's see. So Tom B's talking about the guy he works with that's 50 that just got started investing in Pokemon. He said, hilarious. He's been talking to him about it for years. He has no kids and a wife, makes great money. He thought, screw it. Why not get it shipped to New Hampshire tax-free? Well, hey, man, if you could do it, make it work, make it work. Put it this way. Let's hope he makes it work, because if he can't make it work, I'm probably doing the same thing, and I don't want to crash and burn with everybody else. So number one mod in the game, just dropped the link for Bearski's channel. Yeah, I recommend you guys clicking on that, checking them out, giving them a subscribe, especially, like I said, if you plan on going to the Jersey Collecticon. So Nicholas says it's actually next weekend, May 4th. He was thinking about doing one or doing the June 8th East Coast Collectibles. Reach out to me on Instagram, man. Let's see. Violet Wood Squirrel said, made it. Started from the beginning. Thanks for the video. No problem, Violet Wood Squirrel. I think that's a pretty awesome name. Violent Wood Squirrel. And then I see number one mod in the game. Drew, got to the bottom. Something I very rarely do. Listen, if you guys kept chatting, if you guys kept asking me questions, I never get to the bottom. But somehow, sadly, I did. And a new record. Under 50 minutes. Guys, listen, I appreciate every single one of you. No, seriously, though, I do have to wake up super early for work tomorrow. I'm not looking forward to it, especially on a Friday. Friday's supposed to be one of those days when you're supposed to have... this is my joke, it's work really hard Mondays, and then Friday's supposed to be fuck off Friday because you're supposed to have an easy Friday. Unfortunately, my Friday tomorrow is going to be like a 10 to 12 hour day. Got to wake up super early, going to stay super late, going to work super hard, but sometimes you got to risk it for the biscuit, guys. Listen, as always, appreciate every single one of you. If you're made to the end of this video, do me one solid. The only thing I ever ask is to hit that like button. You don't have to do anything else. Just hit that like button. If you're new to this channel, you somehow made it to the end of a close to 15-minute long live with some maniac in his grandma's basement ranting about Pokemon cards. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. If you do like the live, if you do want to ask questions in the chat, hit that little bell notification. You will get a notification every time I go live. At this point, I pretty much only go live. I almost nearly never record videos at this point. But as always, guys, appreciate every single one of you. And as always, I'll catch you on the next video.